You know we are in love. This song. You know we are. This is me and you against the world alone. You know we are in love. This song.
What's up? It's Noah Taborda here on Blake and Noah, LA to Chicago, episode 17. And we have some big news, but before we announce that, I'm here with my co-host Blake Devine from LA, or not LA, Santa Barbara, but it's probably a lot warmer there than it is here.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting a little cold weather, but we're pretty wimpy out here in California. I think we're around the 50s or 60s, and for that weather, that's considered very cold weather for California, but I'm doing great. Happy holidays to everybody. December 15th today, right in the prime time season in the NFL. Also, college football, the bowl games are going to be starting, and then also the World Cup. They announced the pools and the draw, and it was a tough one for the U.S., but lots to talk about here. But Noah, get us started with the number to call in for today.
Well, right before I say that, Blake, just really quickly, we have like 6 inches of snow, so it kind of sucks. But besides that, we are over 100 likes on our Facebook page. We are at 103, so thank you so much for your support, everybody. And, keep liking it. Just because we're over 100 doesn't mean it has to stop. Want to keep going up in that number. But the number to call for today, as always in most of the shows, it is 224-563-8444. Again, that is 224-563-8444. And, yeah. So, Blake, what do we have to get started with?
Yeah, we're going to start with college football. The biggest award, maybe one of the most big awards in all of sports, the Heisman Trophy. Well, it was announced last night, and there were no surprises here. Jameis Winston of Florida State won the award, the second consecutive Heisman ever to win the award, and the youngest player to win the Heisman. Just an absolutely fantastic year for him, and it was also the 7th largest margin of victory ever for a Heisman winner. That was Jameis Winston, and he was just absolutely dominant throughout the season. No doubt in my mind that he was the best player throughout the year. A.J. McCarron, great year, great career at Alabama, but he just didn't have the stats compared to Winston. Also, Northern Illinois' quarterback. Let me just go on the award. I'm going to forget his name already, which is terrible. Jordan Lynch, of course. A great season for him, but just too small of a program, and you could make the argument that his opposition was not as strong as that of Jameis Winston. But a great year for all, and then we have him playing against Trey Mason of Auburn, another very strong player, and just it's going to be a great matchup in the BCS title game, seeing these two Heisman caliber players playing up against each other. But Noah, what did you think of Jameis Winston getting the award?
Well, it was great, and of course, before the Clemson game, he said, if we gonna do it, we gonna do it big, and he said the same thing when he won that Heisman. You could just tell that he was genuinely, grateful for winning the award. He really understood what it meant to win the award and how much pressure comes with it, and I was just really impressed by his demeanor and how he acted after winning that award. Said that he had been talking to some of the past Heisman about what's going to come now and how people are going to treat him. But I'm proud of him. He came in this year with a lot of expectations, big weight on his shoulder. Coming in after a quarterback that goes so high in the draft in E.J. Manuel is not easy, but he took the bull by the horns, and he just had a phenomenal year.
Yeah, and also some people are making the conversation right now just because it was such a dominant win for him, but some people are trying to make the argument, who would have been the better quarterback, Johnny Manziel last year, the first Heisman ever to win the award, compared to Jameis Winston this year? And a lot of people are still saying they'd go with Johnny football, despite Winston winning in Johnny's second year at Texas A&M. But Noah, I want to hear, what do you think of that?
So Johnny Manziel's last year versus this year's Jameis Winston.
This year's Heisman winner, Jameis Winston.
Okay, so Johnny Manziel last year, and he is a significantly much more electrifying player and a very more exciting player than Jameis Winston, but I don't know if he's as consistent. You see, last year, his stats are actually, but he throws 4 less interceptions, but he throws 7 less touchdowns. He throws less yards. So I would have to go with Jameis Winston of this year, even though Johnny Manziel is able to run the ball so well. And Blake, really quickly, we have a caller on the line. What's your name? What's up, Will? What did you want to ask us?
Hey, I just want to know what your thoughts on Kobe's return to the Lakers are.
Okay, Blake, you got to start it because you're the Lakers fan. What are your thoughts on Kobe Bryant's return?
So far, very subpar and very average. I'm a little worried about all the money that the Lakers paid Kobe Bryant to make his return with the team. For 2 years, getting paid the highest player in the NBA would seem very ridiculous for how old he is. And he's been averaging somewhere around 13 points so far. He's been very off and on. He'll score like 21 points in one game. The next game, he'll get 4. And they're only 1-3 since he came back. So I don't know if this is a good thing for the Lakers or a bad thing. I just can't determine that so far. But it's been a little disappointing.
Yeah, and for me, the biggest issue really isn't even his offense. It's his defense. You see, the Lakers we're playing well without him. But what Kobe is unable to do is keep up with younger, fresher legs. And it's just been very difficult for him to play up against those players. I do think he'll bounce back, and in the long run, I think it's good for the Lakers, though I do agree with Blake when he says that they did overpay him a little bit. Do you have anything else to add, Blake?
No, just ask Will if he has any more questions.
What are your thoughts on last night's Heisman? Do you think they would deserve to give it to Jameis Winston after the whole scandal with the scandal in general?
Yeah, Blake, so we were just talking about the Heisman, but what we didn't mention was the scandal, of course, Blake. So do you think he deserved it even after the scandal, Blake?
I do. He was not guilty. I mean, some people say that that's a little questionable due to the fact that it was the Florida State Police Department that was trying to determine if he was guilty or not, and they must have had a lot of pressure to get that case right. But he was not guilty, and by far he was the best player of the season. Although a few Heisman voters just left his name off the ballot, he deserves the award. There was nobody that was even close to how good he was on the field this season.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And as you said, those people left him off the ballot, and that was probably those that voted before the verdict came out on his innocence. And though maybe it's a little bit of immaturity on his part, you know, Johnny Manziel was immature at points last year. Every star has his moments of immaturity, but that doesn't mean that they don't deserve it. Jameis Winston was the best player in college football this year, bar none. Okay, well, thanks for calling in. Call in anytime.
All right, thanks. Bye.
One caller down. What was our record, Blake? Like 3?
Our record was 3 or 4. I have to remember, to be honest with you. I kind of forgot, but maybe we can eclipse that tonight. Maybe our earliest caller we've ever had into our show. But we'll get right back into the college football segment of our show. And now we're going to talk a little bowl games. We're just going to talk some of the biggest bowls. Who do we think will win? And what are some star players or just big matchups to look out for in the bowl season? We're going to start with naming off all the BCS bowls just so all you guys can be accumulated and ready for what's going to be quite the exciting bowl season this year. So obviously we have our BCS national title game. That is going to be Florida State, number 1, versus Auburn, number 2, in Pasadena at the Rose Bowl. I'm personally hoping to attend that game. Still working on getting my tickets, but boy, would that be quite the game to go attend. Another game is the Discover Orange Bowl. You have Noah's Ohio State Buckeyes, only one victory away from reaching that title game. They're the 7th-ranked team in the nation, playing number 12 Clemson, who's 10-2. It'll be a very exciting game, one to look out for sure. Also, you have Alabama, the 2-time defending champs, playing in the Sugar Bowl versus Oklahoma, who's 10-2.
Blake, really quickly, we have another caller.
Wow.
So we have another caller on the line. What's your name?
Bradley?
It's Bradley again. What's your question for this week, Bradley?
I just wanted to see what your guys' opinions were on Jameis Winston winning the Heisman.
Okay, so again on the Heisman, Blake. And just to add another thing to this, Blake, after the amazing year that Trey Mason had and all the attention that he got, do you think he deserved a little more recognition against Jameis Winston?
I do not, because he personally did not start getting in the national eye of people until they beat Alabama. Nobody really knew what was going to be the kind of caliber of player that this guy had the potential to be at the start of the year because he was not the big-name hype player that Auburn was thinking of. They were coming off of a 3-9 season. He only really caught the national spotlight towards the end of the year. Yes, he had a fantastic performance in the SEC title game. He also played very well versus Alabama, defeating the number 1 team in the country at the time. But Jameis Winston, throughout the season, way more consistent than Trey Mason was.
Yeah, in my opinion, the only player that really could have dethroned him was Jordan Lynch, and he lost that opportunity in the final week. You know, if he had beaten, who was it, Bowling Green State, I think he may have come a little closer than he ended up coming, but he lost that game. He threw 2 interceptions, played poorly, so it really wasn't really the greatest performance.
Yeah, and just now for Bradley, I know he's a big soccer fan, but Bradley, if you have any questions about the World Cup and the draw that the U.S. got, or just some exciting games to look out for, what do you think of that?
Yeah, I just want to ask you guys how you guys feel the U.S. will do in the World Cup this year, considering that their bracket is very tough.
Okay, Blake, I'll start this one off. You know, I love soccer a lot. I personally am not a Colombia fan. I mean, not a USA fan. I'm a Colombia fan because my dad's Colombian, but I do root for the USA when they're not playing Colombia. And they did get a really, really hard side, you know, going up against the number 2 team in the world, Germany, number 5, Portugal, and Ghana, who always seems to have their number. But they do still have a shot. If they can beat Ghana and tie Portugal, they have a very good shot, but it will be very, very difficult. And if I was a USA fan going in, I'm not very optimistic.
Yeah.
Thanks for calling in, Bradley. Call in anytime.
Thank you.
Well, that's a lot of callers already. We have 2, and that is definitely the quickest 2 we've ever had. Just in our first segment today, the college football segment. But great job. Thank you guys for all calling in, and feel free to share your opinions at any time in this show today. So I was talking about the BCS Bowls. I'm going to get going more. Tostitos Fiesta Bowl, we have UFC versus Baylor, and this is kind of the one BCS Bowl game that some people are kind of throwing off, shrugging, and going, oh, it's on the January 1st night. I already have watched the Rose Bowl. I might not be really interested in watching another football game, but people, watch out. You have 2 11-1 teams. UFC could be undefeated. Their only loss was a 3-point home loss to South Carolina, who's a very good team, 10-2 from the SEC. UCF also beat Louisville, who's a very, very strong team, led by Teddy Bridgewater. And then Baylor, their only loss was that blowout loss at Oklahoma State. And then if they had won that game, you could say and make the case that they should have maybe played in the BCS national title game. So 2 very good teams and a very good game to watch out for. And then our last BCS bowl game, and this is going to be one of the best games that we can watch out for this bowl season. It's the 100th edition of the Rose Bowl game, played in Pasadena, California. You have number 4 Michigan State, who knocked off Ohio State, versus number 5 Stanford, the champions of the Pac-12. So this is going to be quite the matchup to watch out for. You have 2 very strong defenses, but Stanford's offense is a little stronger than Michigan State's offense, but 2 very balanced teams that kind of have similar playing styles, and it is going to be really hard to determine who wins this game. I have no idea. Noah, what do you think?
Well, it is obviously a phenomenal matchup, but Stanford comes in harder strength of schedule. You know, they really had a lot more experience, and though they did lose 2 games, I think the Stanford team looks really good, and as long as they don't have a collapse like they did against Utah, like they did against USC, they should win the game. And the important thing is that they have to keep pounding the rock. Give it to Gaffney. Give it to him over and over again and let him do the work like he did against Oregon. And then for Michigan State, continue to do what you did. Darquez Dennard, a phenomenal cornerback, being named the best defensive back in the nation. Give the ball to Jeremy Langford on offense and let him do his thing. This should be a good matchup, but I favor Stanford in this one.
Yeah, I mean, and then also, Noah, you can make the case that this is going to be the best bowl game, maybe even better than the BCS national title game, because these teams just seem so similar and so even. But